TitleMatchNetwork.com.
You went over to Europe for a couple times. Was it hard adjusting to the style in Europe?
No, not really. I had a good time in Europe. I mean, I stayed there off and on for 5 years. I mean, like I said, I spent a total of 45 months there. The only difference that you had to adjust to was the round system.
Right.
And to me, I think I brought something to those people. I mean, when I first got there, you'd be beating the shit out of the guy, kicking the shit out of him, supposedly. And the bell would ring, and he'd get up and go to the corner. And I said, hey, I tell you what. I said, why don't you just lay there till half the thing is over, and then get up and drag your ass to the corner? That way what I've done to you means something. Otherwise, if I do something dastardly to you, and the fucking bell rings, got time for a pauser, that's what they call it, pauser, rest. What the fuck does it mean? I just wasted all my efforts and your efforts up to that point, selling, and then you get up dance to the corner, get yourself a drink,
Right.
and come back out. But once they understood that, then it became easy. Just not much different than working a continuous match. The interesting thing about Europe was, and the biggest change for me was, the personnel that I was dealing with. Now, a lot of the German wrestlers were what they call Zuhalters, which was German for pimps. In other words, they were married to their top wage earner, which was their wife, but their wife was a prostitute. Prostitution's legal, pimping's illegal. So, I mean, again, this is something that it was hard for me to understand. But the one guy, when I was there, I mean, it was my first tour. He'd been there, and he calls me over. He was one of the top guys. His name was Axel Dieter, and he said, you heard I'm a Zuhalter. And I said, well, it's been mentioned, that you're involved in prostitution. And he said, well, you know what? He said, this is Europe. He said, in America, he said, you send your wife to work, and she may work with her hands. He said, in Europe, he said, I send my wife to work. She's just working with another body part. And I found myself fucking saying, well, fuck, he's right, I guess. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Huh.
But again, not every wrestler in Europe, was a pimp. But a lot of them. And they had the pimp union. I mean, they had a strong hold on some of the various promotions. Hanover was that way. Bremen to a certain extent. So a number of those promotions were controlled by the pimp network. That doesn't mean that those guys weren't good workers. Some of them, again, the one I mentioned, Axel Dieter was an excellent worker. He knew how to sell. He knew when to sell. He knew when to come back. And, the only thing Axel didn't like was he liked to be stiff, but he didn't like to be stiffed back. So again, once you talk to him and say, hey, I can hit you in the fucking kidneys as hard as you can hit me in the kidneys, then he says, well, maybe we can work now. We can work together and earn money. I could go off on a tangent, and I spent, once I was over, then the old guard, which was the pimp network, because they had been there for many, many years, and they were starting to, their drawing power had fallen. And, the word was out that they were pimps and Zuhalters. And so they had lost a little bit of their clout. Now you had Otto Wanz, the big fat guy from Graz, Austria, who was now, he was over in Graz, and which was his own hometown. He had his own tournament that he ran. And then he was over in Bremen. He was basically the booker in Bremen and the big superstar. So he was wanting to expand. They needed, some new talent in Hanover and Vienna and Linz, Austria. And so enter Otto. Now, I'm over, and I spent one whole season in those towns getting him over. In other words, making him look good. So it comes the second year, and now we're still, all in the same boat. Now, Otto, you're over. It's time we work together. Instead of you wanting 90% of the fucking match, and we go Broadway. It don't work that way anymore. We've got to be even up. And so on this one particular occasion, I was working with him, and I knew his old game. He would back into the corner, and he would, cover himself up, and he'd say, heel, heel. In other words, that means open up on him. You'd beat the shit out of him, and then he'd come roaring out, bam, bam, manchette, manchette. So he would get into the corner, and he'd say, heel, heel, and I'd hit him once, and then I'd just walk away from him.
Huh.
Same thing, get back into the corner, heel, heel, I'd hit him once, walk away from him. He wanted to make a comeback, but he couldn't make a comeback because there was nothing to make a comeback for Christ's fucking sake. And so finally, I'm beating the shit out of him, and then I start bailing out of the ring. When he starts to come out of the ring, I just bail out. So finally, in the 5th round, it's time for his comeback. I'm in there. Make your comeback, Otto. He was so fucking mad and so pissed off that he wouldn't make a comeback. He was just so fucked up that he wouldn't make a comeback. Of course, that was the beginning of the end for me because he was in charge and I wasn't.
Right.
And I remember coming to the back of the garderobe, the dressing room, and Peter, who was the booker, another pimp, Peter in bureau. I mean, Peter in the office. And so I'm sure that, my fate was, it was shortened after that. And then the next year I was, doing jobs for the opening guys. But you know what? They thought that would be the meaning, but I'm fucking smarter than that. I know, the American style, which is, it all pays the same.
Yeah.
On the top, on the bottom, day off, week off.
Right.
The European mentality was, oh goddamn, I haven't worked in 3 fucking days. Because they got an abundance of talent.
Yeah. And
they only got 5 matches on the card, and you got 30 guys in the parada. So somebody's going to be off. If they're using you, you're going to be working every night because, you're definitely going to be working on the off nights. And by the off nights, I mean Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are, pretty much sellouts anyway.
Right.
So they always kind of like reserve. They put, a little bit of a strong card on the weekends. But on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, that's when, the stars are all out. I mean, they're going to be in full force. But a lot of those guys, they used to worry, I haven't worked in 3 days. Fuck.
You also worked for...
I'm getting work. I mean, I'm here. I'm getting paid. I don't give a shit about work or not.
TitleMatchNetwork.com